Welcome in our co-host, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield, the star of our opening comments today.
Good morning, Rob. Maria would have let me tell my story, and she would have been listening with great intent and interest. Would you, Maria?
I believe that.
That is the case, but the thing that made me giggle was just a real short story. Anybody who knows Bill Stubblefield knows that there is no such thing as a really short story.
You have to flesh it out.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Good morning, Maria.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Great to have you with us along for the ride today.
You know, we had quite a storm last night. Got it with Maria. Got quite a storm this morning.
Yeah. Maybe. I have my headphones on. I'm happy for now.
I got woken up about 1:30 and 2:30. I think it was.
It
roughly
was
last
something.
night.
Yeah. And you know, as you were taught by your grandmother to count between the lightning flash and the sound, there was no separation at all. They were one and the same.
It was intense.
We had a couple storms ago. We had a lightning strike somewhere near our house, and it was like a bomb went off in the backyard. I don't know where it hit. I didn't see any evidence. I didn't see a tree down. All I know is we were sitting there. It was like the beginnings of the storm. This building, you kind of get the rumblings, and all of a sudden it was just boom. And we were watching our son's dog, and the dog got up and just like, "Excuse me, I'm out of here. See you later."
Yeah, I got up early this morning expecting to see a lot of damage. We did have one huge tree that went down by the river, but that's the only damage. But I thought we were having a lot of damage with as intense that storm was.
You better get the chainsaw out, Admiral.
Get the chainsaw out. Yep.
Get to work. Our guest in this segment is Nick Diehl. He's kind of a big deal. Good morning, Nick. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us here, sir. Does this count as an airport authority meeting here with Maria in the room?
I don't think so.
Not quite a quorum.
I don't comprise a quorum by myself. Not yet, anyway.
Well, you are a strong presence, though.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Nick, before we get into some things about the Independence celebrations, give us an update on the airport itself.
All right, we are plugging along. We last month we did a couple of group trainings with some various aircraft. So if you see airplanes flying around and there's two or three together, then the reason you're seeing those is because we have somebody that comes in and does trainings to do that. They do it a couple times in May, and then we're going to do it a couple times in the fall. And so it's always fun to watch those guys fly around.
It is.
You're talking about private planes and not
Yes.
Not commercial or Air Force.
Correct.
Planes.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are just small planes, Moonies and things like
Like
that.
the Badgers plane.
The Badgers plane, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he was
Has-
coming into the Eastern West Virginia Regional Airport.
Probably
right?
came in very hot as well.
Yeah.
Goosey buzzing the tower there. Nick, in the 90s, did you ever check out any of the experimental aircraft when the AOPA used to do things at the airport on an annual basis in the summer?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't living here then. I've heard about those actually, but I was not around.
They were pretty cool. Any interest in bringing those back?
We've actually talked about doing some various programs out there outside of doing an air show, just trying to bring some really neat aircraft in, and we've been talking to some folks about doing that next fall.
Oh, good. So. That's very nice. Mr. Hornby went to Ireland, met with the Prime Minister there and many other economic leaders and legislative officials, and they talked about hangars and Ireland being big in the airplane industry and painting and whatever for airplanes, and how our airport with that long runway and available space would be an interesting location to look at.
Yeah, I talked to Delegate Hornby about that, and it's an exciting discussion. We'd love to see some larger hangars out there and some big aircraft.
Yeah, how would that work in regards to getting something like that from talking stage to investment stage?
I mean, typically, somebody needs to express the interest, then we typically would put together a plan of where we could put hangars the size that they need, and make sure that our taxiways and our runway can handle the size of the aircraft. Our runway can handle the size of literally any aircraft. Most of our taxiways can handle some pretty big aircraft, but we only have one that handles the real large ones, and so we would tend to steer everything toward that particular taxiway. So we've actually done some drawings just to have some fun. Say,
cool.
Okay, how big of a hangar can we put here?
Nick, does the close proximity to Dulles work to our advantage or our disadvantage?
Both.
Yeah.
It's we tend to have a lot of business aircraft stop in if they do need to stop for fuel or whatever. We're an easy stopping point for them, but we typically don't get as many corporate aircraft that are quote living at our airport because they prefer to be a little closer into the city, and most of the people that own those live in Northern Virginia and Maryland and some of the higher income areas.
And Bill gave me a wonderful segue because you know what the next question is. Why don't we have commercial service at the regional airport, Nick Diehl?
Well, we have about a 4-page article written that I'm ready to do something with soon. But the reality is that there are 12 commercial airports within 90 miles of us, and for us to be able to try to attract people to fly in and out of here versus in and out of Dulles, where tickets would be a quarter the price probably, is a hard sell.
And it really is, especially with the 4-laning, at least mostly, of Route 9. It's just such an easy. My daughter and her husband are flying out today for their 1-year, quote, honeymoon, quote, vacation. And, to Dulles, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
It's just easy.
Pretty quick trip.
I know going back at least 20 years, so there have been extensive studies to see the viability of doing it. And from us as residents of Berkeley County, Jefferson County, it makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
But economically, it does not.
Right. And the reality is that to have a commercial airport is extremely expensive, whether you have a lot of service coming in either or not.
Yeah, there's been some talk about a kind of a directed shuttle between Charleston, West Virginia, and Martinsburg, and that got some leverage for a while, but finally it petered out because they could not make the finances work.
Right. It's just too expensive, and that's the problem. Flying is expensive, and the way you get those prices down is to fly more people in larger aircraft, and so it's tricky from here to Charleston.
Yeah.
Nick, explain the way the airport works, its relationship with the Guard, who controls the land, the runway, the finances of it. How does that work?
So we are a publicly owned airport. The 167th Airlift Wing is our largest tenant, and I say that we own the property, we own the runway, we own the property that the 167th is on. However, our airport would not be there and would not be the size that it is if it were not for the 167th. We are the largest airfield in the state of West Virginia. We have the longest, widest, and heaviest runway in the state and in the Shenandoah Valley area. And the reason for that is because the 167th, when they had C5s, needed that kind of length and that kind of weight capacity. And so we're really blessed to have them as a partner on the field. Typically, when there's snow, they will come out with their big equipment and plow the runway for us. We plow our taxiways on our side, and they take care of the taxiways on their side typically.
Are the 5s all phased out now?
5s are, well, here they are. There are a small handful of C5s still flying, but C-17s are out there, and I'm sure you see this flying around pretty regularly. It's an amazing aircraft, and even though it's not quite as big as a C5, it's got a lot more capability, and it's a lot more dependable. The C5s tended to have a lot of maintenance issues.
Let's skip to your Independence Day celebration. We can come back to the other things in a minute. I want to make sure Nick gets this in before we run out of time. Go ahead, Nick.
So on June 28th, we are having our Independence Day celebration. We do this every year. And we always do it the Saturday before the 4th of July. We are talking now about how we're going to handle this next year, because next year 4th of July is on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And we always did it the Saturday before because we don't want to interfere with. I know the city has fireworks and there are some other entities that do things on the 4th, and so we've always tried to be cognizant of that in doing our event on the Saturday prior. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this time, June 28th, gates open at 3. It's a family friendly event. It's free. There's a large kids area this year. Actually, they're brought to you by Lovely Pixels. The entire event is brought to you by CMC. I'm sure you are familiar with them at this stage of the game. They're a fantastic company, and I'm excited to see them continue to grow in the Eastern Panhandle. And the We've got food trucks. We've got areas to sit. You can bring out a lawn chair and watch. We always have 3 bands, and so the bands start at 4. We have one at 4, one at 6, one at 8. All this information is on our website, flymrb.com. But there are, it's usually a very nice event. We work very closely with the sheriff's department and with emergency services and everybody else, so we can get folks in and out of there pretty quickly and pretty efficiently. And we're happy to say that it's been a very nice, successful event each year, outside of a little rain.
I was going to say, and it's not going to rain this year. Absolutely, positively not. Nothing like those huge storms coming in, Bill. Right when a band is getting ready to play, and it's kind of like, ooh,
it's
okay.
Especially frustrating when it's raining just at the airport and nowhere else. It seems.
Absolutely.
We didn't get to hear the first 5 songs of 38 Special last year. So.
You should have it on a golf course. It never rains on a golf course.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Nick, and they're not necessarily related. One, going back to the airport, do you have a working civilian tower?
We have what we call a contract tower. We do have a tower at the airport. It is manned 7 days a week. And the tower is on the military side of the field, and of course that's on purpose, just to protect the tower a little more. And it is there's a company that runs it, a government contract company that runs it. So it's called a contract tower. So it's one of those. So it's not FAA, it's not military, and so there's a little sliver of towers in the country that are these contract towers, and that's what we have. But they do fantastic work and can handle any aircraft that comes in and any quality or quantity of aircraft that may come in.
And they're 24 hours a day?
No, they are not 24 hours. They're I think weekdays they are, I want to say 7 to 11.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, we have instrument approach anyway, but it's
okay.
Yeah.
We were having a few years or so ago. We had a lot of the air shows, and unfortunately had an accident. Will you pick up the air shows again? Is that on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, we've had. So I've helped organize about 7 air shows out there over the years. The first one was in 2005. The one you're talking about with the accident was in 2011. After 2012, we had another show the following year, and then we didn't have another one until 2023, which was our 100th birthday. Speaking of which, our 102nd birthday was yesterday. And so we were, but we did a show on the civilian side. That's where we started them. Is in 2005. We did I think 3 shows on the civilian side and 3 shows on the military side. This one was back on the civilian side, and we will be, if we do another show, it will probably be on the civilian side. We'd like to be able to bring in a large team again. As a matter of fact, we got one, but when we started looking at the show box, so the show box is a space that has to be sterile, and they do show boxes so that the crowd doesn't get injured if there is a situation with an aircraft, which is what happened in 11. And thank God we had the show box, because there were no injuries other than, unfortunately, the pilot. And so the show box, though, for a large jet team like that is twice the size of the typical show box that we have. And unfortunately, if you do that on the civilian side of the field, and the show box reaches out toward the guard base, if you can envision the runway as being splitting the two, that show box ends up going all the way out into the neighborhood behind the guard and neighborhoods on both sides. And there are over 400 houses in that show box, and every single person in those houses would have to leave for a period of time to do that show. And it's just completely unrealistic to think that we would be able to even do something like that.
And the one in 23, if you've never been to an air show, it is a sight to behold. As a member, I don't know if this is why I got to do this, but as a member of the authority, I got to hold this little banner, if you will, where the stunt guy, it's myself on one side and somebody else on the other side, holding this banner, and the plane comes underneath, probably, I'm going to say within, 50 yards of me. It might have been a little farther, but I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal to see the work that they do.
Oh, yeah.
And, certainly it elevated the heart rate as I was standing there. But it is a really cool production. The other thing, Bill, that we certainly have to recognize is, number one, these don't happen without an incredible amount of planning, execution, volunteers, all the things, but also sponsorships. I mean, these things are incredibly expensive to put on.
They're very expensive.
If we don't have, sponsors throughout the region who are willing to put forth the monetary effort that we need to put one of these on, it's just not going to happen. So,
have the crowds met expectation? I know the few that I've been to, there's been a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of people there.
Yeah, I think that the show we had in 23 was the attendance on, I forgot which day it was. It's on one of the days was a little lower than I thought it was going to be, but I found out that there had actually been some weather issues predicted, and I just somehow completely missed that.
Yeah.
But and it never did rain either day, but there were also a lot of other events going on in town at that. There were. I think it was one of the sports seasons, and so I don't remember which day it was, but one of the days there were a few people in there. But so usually they can be explained, but most of the time when you do an air show, you can, over the course of the 2-day period, you can almost guarantee at least 25 or 30,000 people coming through.
One year you had balloons part of the air show, but had some difficulty with the wind and the like. So
and the temperature.
And the temperature.
No, what we found was, and while balloons are beautiful to watch, and I loved the whole concept, but I didn't appreciate. Anybody who has met a professional aerobatic pilot knows that sometimes they can be a little cocky. They're not necessarily these sweet, humble guys. Balloonists are. They're very nice and they're very kind, and and we were all supposed to meet at 0800 every morning, and at about 9:30 they'd come cruising in. Yeah, sorry, slept a little late. And to those pilots in the group, you're like, where have you been? And so it's difficult to manage that group anyway. And I found out that year, which I didn't know before, that if it is too hot, balloons can't fly. And we did it in August, and it was unbelievably hot the whole time we were having this event. And so they had a hard time getting up. And then in the evenings, we tried to do late afternoon shows, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. But the reality is that the heat and the wind have a direct impact
and the thunderstorms.
Yeah, they don't like thunderstorms either. For some reason.
How do the commercial balloonists in the southern Shenandoah Valley work then? So they have the same temperature element that we had here.
Right. So they actually, they have built into their agreements, there's quite a bit of flexibility. So we're going to try to take off at 8, but it could be 9, it could be 10:30. You could come and we tell you to come back tomorrow.
Sure. And
so people kind of understand that there's not that, you can't nail this down like you can on a commercial flight.
So I Googled, why don't hot air balloons work as well in hot weather? And it's because the air inside needs to be significantly hotter than the air outside the balloon to achieve lift.
That actually
when
makes
it's hot
perfect
outside,
sense.
the temperature difference needed for lift is smaller, requiring more fuel and making the balloon less efficient. This can lead to sluggish performance.
Google is an amazing thing.
There it is.
There it is.
There's your answer. So I would have never thought that a hot air, because I see them in the summer all the time. Mm-hmm. But when it's 105, you never notice if there's a hot air balloon up because you're not going to be outside looking for them.
And you see them in Albuquerque, and Albuquerque you have in the summer, but Albuquerque is not as hot as what it is here.
Right. Well, and if you don't see too many balloons flying in the middle of the day. Yeah. They usually fly in the mornings or in the evenings.
In the evenings.
Yeah. Back to the celebration on the 28th, Nick.
Okay. So we've got we start at 3:00. We have 3 great bands, plenty of food trucks, all kinds of kids activities, and we have a beer garden. And then at 9:30 we have fireworks, and the fireworks are always fantastic. We use Zambellis, which is a nationally known group, and they do a really nice job.
Pittsburgh area company. I grew up with Zambelli fireworks at the park every 4th of July. Just
That's right.
up from my house. Yeah. You can't lose if you've got Italians from Pittsburgh helping your celebration. Yeah, I'll tell you that right now. Yeah.
I'm going to remember that.
Hey, the first year, there were complaints about traffic trying to get out of the Guard, and you guys tried your best to rectify that after the first year. What changes did you make?
Well, a lot. The first year, the last car left the parking lot, and it took about 2 hours to get everybody out of that parking lot. Now, in fairness, it was very crowded that year.
We're talking about 2005 or more recent?
Recent.
This is the independent celebration.
Okay.
Yeah, this would have been, 2021, is that right?
That sounds right.
Like
it was right after COVID.
It was right
the first
after,
year.
It was probably the first large event in the area since the pandemic, and so a whole lot of people. There were like 8,000 or 9,000 people there. It was a big group of people, and so that complicated things as well, because we thought we'd have 3,000 or 4,000 people. We had no idea there'd be that many come out,
and they all have to leave at the same time.
Exactly. And then we had some folks that were helping direct traffic that didn't quite understand what they were doing, and that definitely clogs things up. So
the beauty of volunteers.
Exactly. And so we have some fantastic volunteers in place now, and it runs. So we have that. We've gone from a little over 2 hours to 32 minutes is what it took us last year, and the year before that it took us 30 minutes or so. So the car that is deepest in the parking lot is going to take 30 minutes to get out of there, and if you're parked closer to the exit, it's much faster than that.
And all you have to say is consider Antietam. If anybody has ever been to that fireworks display, you're just going to sit there for a couple hours. And again, people just have to be patient.
Right. If you're worried about getting out of there, then take your car and park way over by the exit, and then walk to your car. As you know, and people used to get very upset with me at Antietam, but I would actually get the chairs up, and we would walk over to where the bus was and watch the fireworks from there, jump on the bus, and we were the first one out of there.
Smart man.
Yeah. Shuttles, shuttle availability, that kind of thing.
We're not doing shuttles this year because we found last year, even though we had shuttles last year,
nobody used them.
Yeah, there were a couple hundred people that used them, so it was very helpful to them. But we're getting out of there so fast that you don't really need to. In the length of time it would take you to shuttle over to your car and get back to where you need to go, you could probably just get in your car in the field beside the event and be out of there.
And Nick, what time does it kick off? Not this Saturday, but next Saturday,
Correct.
The 28th.
3 p.m.
3 o'clock. Where can you find out more about the day's events?
FlyMRB.com.
Fly M as in Michael, R as in Roger, B as in Bob.com.
Yes, sir.
And on our Facebook page.
And on our Facebook page, which is EWVRAA.
EWVRAA.
Yeah, Eastern West Virginia Regional Airport Authority. Yep.
Well done, sir. Good to see you, Nick.
Good to see you too, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
The pleasure's ours. Come back anytime.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Yeah, come on in. You got time.